and you encapsulate it. So you have like a small virtual environment to run your application. So that's what we've done successfully today. So, so far, as I've said, um, we ran the commands individually. We ran the commands individually, and this is not optimal. This is not the way to do things. So we ran the commands individually like this. We first had to create our network. Then we first had to run our database. Then we had to build the image for the backend. Then we had to run our container for our backend API. Then we had to build the image for the front end and run our container for the front end. Then we had to build the image for the web server and run our container for the web server. This is not the way to do it. There is a better way to do it, and Docker Compose is the way to do it. So we've discussed about Docker Compose. I've discussed about the files. So right now we're using Docker Compose, and you will see how easy it is. So it involves specifying all these commands into one configuration file. So everything that we've been specifying, the Docker build, the Docker run, the Docker build, the Docker run, is all specified into one container. So it is very, very easy to deploy, configure and deploy. So this is the example Docker file. Let me just go through it one more time before we run it. So we'll be running it right now. Let me put this in my hand. So the first thing you specify in your Docker file is always your version. And the latest one is 3.8. Then you specify all the services. All the services are the containers you want to run, the containers you want to build, you want to run, I mean. So the first thing we did was to build our database, and this is our database. You give it a name. Notice the indentation also is very important in a YAML file. This is a YAML file. The indentation is very important in a YAML file. So you specify your Postgres database, the name. You specify the image. We are using Postgres here. You specify some policies, some configuration policies. And this is just to tell you that in case it shuts down, restart it. Restart always. A database needs a volume, because I said volumes don't persist their data. So a database needs its volume. So here we are specifying a named volume mount. We give it a name and the paths in the container we want to back up. Then we specify the environment variables needed by the database. All these were specified individually in our Docker run command. If we go back, let's go back to our database. You can see we're specifying the name, all the environment variables. All the environment variables are specifying it, and the network. Okay, I'll mention something about the network now. All the environment variables. So instead of specifying this in your terminal, you specify all these things in one single configuration file, so it is easier to execute. So one thing about I didn't talk about the network. One thing about Docker Compose, it automatically creates a network for you and makes all your applications, all your containers talk to each other automatically. You just need to use the container name. So it knows how to make them talk to each other using the container name. It's just like a DNS service. So we'll move to the backend API. So in this case, we are building our own image. We are not using an existing image, so we specify the build command here. Then we specify the Docker file we want to use. This will be the full part of the Docker file. Then the context. Okay, this is just naming the Docker file. Then the context, where the Docker file is, and where the data we want to use in the Docker file is. Then the volumes we want to use. These are bind. This is a anonymous volume, and this is a bind mount. So we also specify the environment variables and the services this backend API is dependent on. So as we included that depends on, it means that Docker Compose will ensure the database is up and running before the backend API is executed. So that makes life easier. Before, we had to ensure that we run the database, else the backend API will say the database is not found. So we move to the front end. So we also specify the build command and where the Docker file is located, the context. That means the Docker file is located in the context folder. Then the volumes, also anonymous volumes, and a bind mount. Then the environment, then what it is dependent on. So all this is in one single file. Then we move to the NGINX server. So the name of the service, some configuration commands, what it is dependent on. We want the backend and the front end to be running, else NGINX should complain that these services are not up, because it needs to ping them and ensure that they are running. Then where to find the Docker file and the context and the ports that is needed. So if you are using a a named volume, you have to specify it underneath your file in the Docker Compose file, because we use a name volume for the database, so we need to specify it. So that is it for our Docker Compose file. So we'll be running it right now. We'll be using the Docker Compose orchestration commands, compose up, compose down, compose build, and so on and so forth. So right now, go to if you are using VS Code, close the multi-container folder and open the compose folder. If you are not using VS Code, if you are using terminal, just open. You need just one terminal. You don't need 4 terminals. You just need one, because compose will take care of running all your services for you. Just see the change directory into your compose directory. Let me do both so that everybody can see that. Okay, for me, I have it opened in VS Code. So let me open a terminal so that you can see, for those that are not using VS Code. Yeah, a fresh terminal. Yes, stop the other ones. Yeah, I included the commands to stop for the former one. Please first stop it, please. Let me show the commands again. You can be anywhere, just be in the terminal, in a terminal. Stop all the services, but you can be anywhere in your terminal. I too should stop them. I haven't stopped them too. Yeah, one by one. So who can tell me the command I can use to list all running containers? Docker PS, yeah. So now that we've stopped it, let's check if they have really stopped and been removed. For me, I have a lot of containers running. So you're about to see a lot of containers, a lot of other containers. So as you can see, I have nothing about PostgreSDB. I have nothing about tax management front end. I have nothing about NGINX. I have nothing about API. So they've all been removed. Okay. So have we all stopped it? Anyone having issues with stopping it? It's very simple. Just run the commands docker stop, then the name of the container. That's what we are doing here. Docker stop and the name of the container. Okay. It stopped. Okay. So right now, I'm in my terminal. Let's go to the compose directory. Compose. Let's go to the compose directory. Yes, cd change directory, the compose directory. So when you're in the compose directory, so I've included some commands here to start all services and to build the images. To start all services and to build the images, we run docker compose up hyphen build. I think it should be hyphen hyphen. You have the slides now. Everybody has the slides in the compose folder. Yeah. What's not there? Then there should be a file. This is what you should have. You should have backend, frontend, nginx, and a compose file. It's not there. It's there now. This is it. It's there. It's there. Check the if you download it from the GitHub repository, you will find it there. The file has to be there for it to work. It's there now. Check it. What's the problem? Yeah, that's it. Okay. No, but you need to be in your compose folder to run the command I want to run. Open the second HPC. Yeah, you need to be in your terminal. You need to be in your compose folder. And yeah, that is the compose folder. And but you okay, you just open the compose file, but you need the other files for it to run. So you need to open the compose folder, the old folder. No, yeah, I just opening one file. You need to open the old folder. No, the compose folder, this folder. Open it in code. Yeah, open this folder in code, in code, in your yeah. Yeah. So you can now open the terminal and run Docker compose and run the command I'm about to run. No terminal. Yeah, opening the compose. Okay. No, no. Or let me just do it for everybody to see. Let me do it for everybody to see. Okay. You should be sitting at the so open this. Yeah, I want to open it like this. Yeah. Okay, so I think we all have the compose folder. So if you are using terminal, you need to change your directory to the compose folder. If you are using VS Code, you need to open the compose folder. As you can see for me, I opened the compose folder. I'm in the compose folder. If you can see my mouse. Okay, I have to wrap up very soon. So after you uh have the folder open, you just run docker compose compose up. So this will start all services. Then because we want to build, you do build. So this will start all services and build all images. To build all images and start all services. So you can see it's creating network, it's creating the volume mounts, and it's building all images for you. So instead of running all those individual commands, we are running just one command and it's building everything. So it will take some time. So it's going to build everything. Docker compose, docker-compose space up space hyphen build. So the highlighted command is what to run. So it will take some time. I think we'll stop now. So, but we've already tested it. Immediately it runs. Open your browser and run localhost colon 88. Immediately it's done. Open your browser and run localhost colon 88 and ensure that you have similar application as you had in the first practical session. So we can see how easy it is. Instead of running several commands, we just run one command. Yeah. So it makes life easier. So when you test the application, to shut it down, just do compose down and it will delete everything for you automatically. Or look at the slides. If you want to delete the volume and the images, docker compose down -v -rmi all. It will delete all the volumes and all the images at once for you. But docker compose down will stop everything and remove the containers.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll be starting our next session, and then our facilitator is actually online. So we'll be inviting Dr. Bennett Dr. Benoit? Dr. Benoit?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're welcome.
Good morning.